Welcome back to Between Tantrums with Bridget and Kathy on the couch.
On the couch.
Got a big one today. We're going to talk about boundaries, and we've actually put a clock up to try and keep us
succinct
and give us a boundary of time. Because this is a big one, and this is one we could probably talk about for days. And we're actually considering doing a workshop on this for parents. So we'll give you what we've got for a taster, and if you think it's something you'd like more on, we can work on that. But she's a biggie, the boundaries, because it's kind of the parenting pinnacle.
It's the guts, isn't it? It's the real hard graft.
Yeah, it's not. This is today and it's done. This is every day of parenting, and from pretty much the time they're born till they're flown the coop, it's reiterating boundaries, and the boundaries are new and different. And remembering that you are the parent, and that it is you who is having to decide what happens with this little person to ultimately come to what you hope for them.
Absolutely. Creating the young adult you want to gift to the world. Yeah. So it is a long game. It's a really long game.
So we're going to talk a little bit about how hard it is, because when you are setting boundaries with children, they're never going to say, "Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that."
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of it?
It's the time when you are being the parent, not the friend. And ultimately, we're doing it for their independence, their sense of self, their worldview, their autonomy, a whole lot of reasons, and often their safety.
Yeah, and a child that is aware of the boundaries is a very secure child. They're not anxious about the world because they know that the people who are running the show have got the ship on course, and they don't have to be taking control. They can just be the little person, and they look to you to reassure them in that regard.
So you might be wondering what it means to set the boundaries, and I think the word boundaries is pretty definitive in itself, that it's setting an idea for our children as to what is acceptable and what isn't, what we deem to be appropriate and what we don't. And if we start this when children are young, then parenting is actually quite a joy. But the longer you leave it and think children are just going to figure out the boundaries for themselves, in our experience, the less desirable the behaviours are throughout their lives.
And it's a harder road to hoe, trying to establish a boundary with a 6-year-old than it is with an 18-month-old who has been consistently parented with these boundaries for the next 5 years or so.
So let's look a little bit at boundaries for an 18-month-old. So a lot of it at this stage is around safety, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And people will question whether or not you can tell an 18-month-old old child what you can and cannot do, and absolutely you can. So from when children are first mobile, we want them to learn about dangers, and so it's simple things like it's hot, don't touch. This is starting boundaries. These are the beginnings of awareness of what mums and dads, parents deem to be keeping you safe. And so as we get older, those boundaries, you're not telling your 5-year-old to not touch the fire. Generally by 5 they've worked out that's not a great idea. But there's other things that they're learning about risk and that they're trying to manipulate their behaviour into. So we've been talking a little bit about how as adults we need to make that call about what we deem to be developmentally appropriate and the timing of the boundaries. So asking a 3-year-old their opinion on what they should have for dinner or when they should go to bed isn't really setting yourself up for an easy parenting road.
No. And while it might feel like you're allowing them to have input and some autonomy, it will actually backfire down the track as the wheels will come off, because a 3-year-old doesn't have the developmental capacity to be making those kinds of decisions. So we know that if this little person has a crappy dinner and has a late night, then they're not going to sleep well. The next day is going to be really hard. So then you're picking your boundary of you will have dinner at this time, bath, bed, whatever routine you follow in the evening, and being consistent with that. So not changing, not saying, oh, okay, when it gets a little bit hard, because we all know that it's very easy to
that's right,
to be exhausted and to go, you know what, I don't care. Okay. We've all been there, but it will make it harder in the long run if you continue to do those kind of accepting of a little bit of a wiggle on the boundary rather than a firm butting up against it.
absolutely. And so we're thinking too about how we go around delivering the boundaries, and I hear a lot of dialogue with parents and children, and kudos to parents, because none of us have given a handbook when we have our little babies telling us this is the way to parent, this is not. And again, this is just our opinion on how you set boundaries and how you raise children, and you might think it's complete nonsense. But in my experience, the more dialogue there is with a child around a rule or a consequence, the more dragged out it becomes, the more upset everybody is, the higher the cortisol is going. Whereas if it's a simple no, that's it.
No is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain things, particularly with very little children. Don't over explain, just get to the point, and that's it. I think the more you negotiate, as you say, all that, it gets very difficult, and then everyone's getting stressed, and then as a parent you're like, I can't handle it, just do what you want. So it makes it harder for us in the long run if we are constantly negotiating the boundaries.
And they're there for a reason. Like we're telling them the boundary is here because that is where the level of whatever. So we're going to do a little dialogue around in this scenario. So one thing that seems to often be interesting is dinner, isn't it? And most families will have or know of a family who have interesting dinner arrangements. There's all kinds of scenarios. You hear of people who cook 2 dinners so that the kids have one meal, and sometimes even more than 2. Mum or dad might be making 3 or 4 different meals to adapt to everyone's taste and palate. And this is a bit old school, because when I was a little girl, I was told that's what we're having for dinner. And if you don't like it, that's okay, but I'm not making anything else. And that's the same thing I've said to my children. And it's actually the same thing as what we say to 50 little people at my childcare centre each day. Is they'll often, when they start coming to preschool, they'll look at the food and they'll just say, this is what's for lunch today. And they'll look at you and then you'll say, there's nothing else, it's just this meal today. And parents are astounded at what their children will eat, because ours is vegetarian meals, they're very different to what food they have at home. But that's it. There's no, oh, well, I'm going to go and fix you something else, or if you don't eat it, then we'll just give you something else. It's this is the meal, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But I'm not making anything else. And the same
never
goes.
Starve, do they?
No, absolutely. We know we're we're pretty good at self-preservation, and we generally eat eventually if we're going to realise there's no alternative.
And sometimes it takes that many tries for a new food or something to be accepted, and that's okay. It's okay if they're not finishing their whole meal, but it's great if they're having a little try of something new, or they'll only eat what they need, and if they are really hungry, they will come back to it. I was known with my 2. Ben was particularly fussy eater. Not that you would know it now, but I would prepare his meal, and if he decided he didn't want it, that was fine. It would stay on the plate, and I would cover it. And 9 times out of 10, he would be back half an hour later, finishing what was on his plate. So he's always been my boundary tester, and I was quite comfortable knowing that he wouldn't starve, because he would eat it eventually. And eventually he grew out of that. He grew out of testing that boundary because it was always the same, and it got really boring to try and see if mum would prepare something else yummier. But no.
And I think you touched on a really good thing. Like that was the consistency.
Mm,
That it wasn't like, okay, when I didn't work 3 or 4 days, I'm going to
mm,
go back and start making. Oh, not go back to it, but I'm going to start trying an alternative meal.
mm,
It's the consistency. And often when we bring in a boundary, or we start putting in boundaries, or we start saying no, or we start making our expectations quite apparent, there's a real resistance, and that the behaviours can escalate and actually be really horrible for a couple of weeks. Because like anything, no one really loves change. And if you're quite used to getting what you want, when you want, how you want it, and then being told, actually, this is what's happening, that can be quite heightening. A lot of people can get quite little people, and older people too, can get quite angry about that, quite frustrated, because it's a whole new way of doing things. So you do need to be prepared that this isn't going to just change, and that they're going to be thrilled about the new way of doing things. But it will get better.
100%.
In a few weeks, in a few days, you should start to see a change in the parenting and a change in the child, and that they are starting to listen more and hear what's being said to them, and what the expectations around what is being said to them.
And it is that consistency is key, and not giving up when it gets really hard and really challenging.
Or when there's people watching, because that's
that's
horrible.
the worst, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
there's all these judgy eyes on you.
These judgy pants. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just, okay, we'll just do it then.
Yeah.
I'm not going to create a scene.
It's just embarrassing. Yeah. We've been there. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So it's not easy. And way you can manage your setting boundaries is, the answer is always still going to be what you want, but you can give a choice, or it's a choice, but there's no choice. So it's still the outcome that you want, but rather than it being delivered in a sit down, eat it, do it, you can say things like, well, you can choose if you eat the dinner, or choose if you don't eat the dinner. Now, as an adult, you know that regardless of what choice they make, the outcome is the same. Like, they're either going to eat the dinner or they're not. When children are having a tantrum about shoes everywhere and they want to choose a pair of shoes, you can take two shoes, two different pairs of shoes. You can wear the red shoes or you can wear the black shoes. So you're still getting them to put shoes on, but you're not going through the 15 different pairs of shoes in the wardrobe.
And often those big feelings come from big overwhelm, because there is too much choice. So particularly for our little people, just narrowing that choice down so they still feel they've got the autonomy. You don't care if they're wearing red or black shoes, you just want them to get the shoes on so you can get out of the house. But they feel that they've been listened to. That helps to build that confidence and independence, and you're narrowing down that overwhelm, which is huge for our little
And you can
people.
even narrow the boundaries right down. For example, something that I often see in our centres, it's home time and the children don't want to leave, which is very flattering.
Oh, isn't that nice?
But you can say to your child something like, you can walk to the car, or I'm going to carry you to the car, but I'm going to count to 3 and you need to choose. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're not walking, I'm going to carry you. So you're still getting to the car. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you have to carry them or watch them walk. The point is, it's not going to go on for 15 minutes and upset.
No negotiating.
It's just
set the boundary, give the time frame, follow through. That screaming in the ear is probably not very nice when you're carrying them to the car, but again, crying's okay, isn't it?
Crying is, that's a really good point. We just brought that up when we were talking about children crying. It's quite an incredible sound, because it's evolutionarily geared to wind us up and to make us alert and heightened.
And put us out of our thinking brain into our real primal brain. It takes you out of your rational thinking quite often.
And so we need to remember that when a little person is crying because they've been told no, that is absolutely okay. They are just adapting to this new information. They don't like that piece of information. They're not thrilled about having to be told no, or that they've got to make a choice out of two little things that's pretty much the same. But they are okay to cry. And often you'll see a parent has done a really great negotiation or a really good boundary set, and they say, okay, we're going to carry you to the car, or you can walk, and then they pick up the kid, and the kid's screaming in there, so they put them down, and then they start negotiating again. And you think, if you just stayed on that path,
stay the course,
carry them to the car, put them in the car, and probably hit screaming, 10 minutes down the road. The next time you got in the car, or the next time you were heading to the car, and you say, do you want to walk, or do you want me to carry you? You might have found the road was a bit easier. It might not have been the next time. It might have been 3 or 4 times down the track. But
absolutely,
the point is that we just melt because we see these little tears and these sad little faces. And this is very different to a child that's crying because they're hurt or they need something. This is a child who's crying because they have been told no, or they've been given an answer that they're not thrilled about.
Exactly.
Or a choice that they don't really make.
Yeah. And if we're trying to implement boundaries, perhaps a couple of years down the track, we have to remember that there's been a certain amount of brain synapses that have been created and wired in that brain to know about the world and to expect things about the world. And if what they are expecting is now different, then that is going to cause a bit of a chain reaction and a bit of upset. So that's all perfectly normal.
It is. Yeah. It takes a lot to rewire.
It does.
Behavioural.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking we probably need to wrap this one up. But I think just one last thing to just finish on maybe is just a little bit about you don't need to explain or justify to your child. We have a lot of conversations we hear parents telling their child all this detail is too much. All you need to say is, I can see you're really upset. That's pretty much it. I can see you're really upset. And then you can go on if you want to and say, I can understand you're upset because I told you that you can't wear your pink shoes or whatever. But you need to choose what shoes you're wearing. Or you can just say, I can see you're really sad at the moment. Yeah. We don't need to go into a whole lot of explanation and
over-narrate
dissecting the conversation and the emotions. It's actually really valid to just acknowledge the feeling and leave it at that. Because our words just become noise.
Yes, when a child is not in their thinking brain, they're not taking anything you say on anyway. So until they are regulated again, there's very little point using words. It'll probably just stress you out and make the whole situation a whole lot worse for everybody, in my opinion.
I agree, and also in mine. And so what you can then do is, as Kath mentioned, when they do regulate, when they are calm again, you can just have a little chat, a little cuddle. It might be really brief. Then might be the time to really dissect the conversation if you really feel the need to. But generally, I would just revisit it very briefly and just say, I know you're really upset when you had to choose which shoes you wanted, and you had lots of choices, but you had to just have one. I know that's upsetting for you, but you did really well.
Absolutely.
And just leave it at that.
Yeah. Regulate before you reason or do anything else, because there's absolutely no point. They're not going to remember the conversation at all. So they're not going to retain any new learnings or any new boundaries from that conversation.
So, takeaways from this are: you are the parent. You are going to set the boundaries. It's choice when there's no choice. Remember, that's still giving the boundary that we want, but it's giving them a little bit of autonomy.
And no is a complete sentence.
No is a complete sentence. So, good luck with that. We genuinely do want to know how you go. So, if you feel inclined to flick us a message or
DM Bridget
and we would love to hear about it. And we will potentially go into more of this in another episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good luck.
Have a great
brave.
Be brave, be strong.
Be strong.
You can do it.